Without notice. Are there any questions? I'll give a call to the Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Thank you very much, Mr Speaker. My questions to the Prime Minister. Before the election, the Prime Minister promised to make families' lives easier through cutting power bills by $275, a promise repeated on 97 occasions, as well as promising to deliver cheaper mortgages. Prime Minister, isn't it true that these promises were just ploys to win votes, and Labor have failed to deliver on these fundamental promises which impact families the most? Will the Prime Minister apologise to Australian families?
Give a call to the Prime Minister, who will be heard in silence. Members on my left. Member for Page. I give the call to the Prime Minister when the House comes to order. I call the Prime Minister.
Thanks very much, Mr Speaker. And I thank very much the Leader of the Opposition for his question, which goes to whether we are making measures to improve people's living standards. And the commitments, that we gave, and I'll take the interjection, which is another way to term it.
The member for Deakin will cease interjecting.
Well, we are keeping our promise to lift the minimum wage. We did that when we put in a submission of the Fair Work Commission of which resulted in a 5.2% increase in the minimum wage. This week we will pass our secure work, better pay legislation aimed at lifting wages, aimed at making sure that we look after working people. That Secure Jobs Better Pay bill will have a number of measures in it which will make a difference to people's living standards, putting gender equity and job security at the heart of the Fair Work Commission's decision-making, banning pay secrecy clauses, giving the Commission the expertise and powers to end the historic inequality between the pay and conditions in female-dominated care industries. That will make an enormous difference. Expanding access to flexible work arrangements, particularly for women and others with caring and educational responsibilities. If you combine that with cheaper childcare and you combine that with increased paid parental leave, then that will make an enormous difference, especially prohibiting sexual harassment in the Fair Work Act. You don't think that improves people's living standards?
Order. The Prime Minister will pause and I'll hear from the Manager of Opposition Business.
Well, Mr Speaker, on relevance, on question time, you've previously upheld a point of order
Resume your
because
seat.
the minister's answer.
Resume your seat. The question included, isn't it true you made promises? The Prime Minister is talking about his commitments. It was a very broad question and a very political question. And I give the call to the Prime Minister.
It was indeed, Mr Speaker. I can see why they're embarrassed, because they voted against all of this. They voted against bolstering the ability of workers to recover unpaid entitlements. They voted against it being against the law to advertise a job that pays below the minimum wage. They voted against that. They voted against it, and they said it's all wrong, it's all bad. We're going to reform the Better Off Overall test as well to make enterprise bargaining more attractive. We've delivered on our commitment to establish a Royal Commission into Robodebt. And don't those over there like that? What's coming out of that? Don't they enjoy that? We're repairing our international relations, which we said we would do. They're still trashing them. They're still busy trashing the relationships, particularly in the Pacific. We've delivered already the regional first home buyers guarantee, and that's coming in with more than 1,000 people have signed up already. We've already expanded the Commonwealth Seniors Health Card. We've abolished the cashless debit card. We are delivering on our promises. We have spent 6 months delivering on our promises. Those opposite
the member for Groom is
just
warned.
stood still for a decade, and ever since then they've been coming to terms with it.
There's far too much noise in the chamber. The member for Groom is warned. It's only the first question. I want the House to be quiet so I can hear from the member for Hasluck.
Thank you, Speaker. My question is to the Treasurer. Why is it important to support Australians with responsible cost of living relief and to get wages moving again?
Great question.
Give the call to the order. The member for Deakin has been continually interjecting. So's the member for Aston as well. When the House comes to order, we will hear from the Treasurer, and I give him the call.
Thanks, Mr Speaker, and thanks to the member for Hasluck for her question and for her contribution to this place as part of a much bigger and much better contingent from WA. Mr Speaker, when government changed hands in May, Australia had skills shortages, an aged care crisis, energy policy chaos, $1 trillion in debt, stagnant wages, and ordinary working people weren't getting a look in. Since then, the global economy has deteriorated and the impacts of the war in Ukraine have become more serious and longer lasting. And that's why around the world we are seeing higher energy prices, higher inflation, higher interest rates and the risk of a hard landing in other economies. And developments in China will weigh on global growth as well. Now, these economic pressures come at us from around the world, but we know that they are felt around the kitchen table. Australians are paying a hefty price for Russian aggression and a decade of economic mismanagement here at home. Let me give you 4 facts, Mr Speaker. A decade-long policy of deliberate wage suppression delivered nominal wage growth at an average annual rate 40% lower than the last Labor government before it. Average weekly disposable household income grew by just $25 between 2014 and 2020. Between 2007 until the pandemic, almost 2/3 of the increase in household income per person, a key indicator of living standards, occurred under the last Labor government. And real wages are lower now than they were 10 years ago as a consequence of all this. Now, we know that we can't fix every single aspect of this overnight, but we can make a difference. And that's why our economic plan is focused on responsible cost of living relief and getting wages moving again in our economy. We've got a policy for cheaper medicines, for cheaper childcare and early childhood education. We've got a policy to train more people for higher wage opportunities. We're taking steps in the energy market, soon in the near term, but also in the longer term. We supported a minimum wage for the lowest paid workers. We support a pay rise for aged care workers as well. And we are fixing a broken bargaining system. Now, all the argy-bargy in this place about industrial relations comes down to a simple difference. Those opposite think that there is never a good time for decent wages growth. Right. We want to make it easier for people who work hard to get ahead and to provide for their loved ones, and that's the difference. That's why the election did more than put an end to a wasted decade of missed opportunities and warped priorities. It did more than end the waste and rorts in our budget. It did more than end a policy of deliberate wage suppression from the national government. It began a new and better approach to managing our economy and leading our country in the interests of our people.
Give the call to the Honourable Deputy Leader of the Opposition.
My question is to the Prime Minister. I refer to the Prime Minister's broken promise to reduce power prices for small businesses and families by $275, a promise he made 97 times before the election. I also refer to the Prime Minister's broken promise to deliver cheaper mortgages made at Labor's campaign launch. Can the Prime Minister identify a single electricity company which has reduced its charges, or a single mortgage holder who is paying less than on the day the Prime Minister made these promises?
Give the call to the Prime Minister.
Yes, thanks, Mr Speaker. Of course, the whole premise of the question is wrong. But when you look at the energy crisis,
members on my left,
they've given up on the IR. No more talk about small businesses and IR.
Order.
No more false examples coming through. They're now back onto another falsehood, now onto another one. Well, this is what Kane Thornton has had to say, the Chief Executive of the Clean Energy Council. He said this: it's abundantly clear that Australia's clean energy transition has been throttled by years of policy uncertainty, with the amount of quarterly commissioned generation capacity continuing the downward trend of the last few years and now at its lowest level on record. Industry confidence to invest is growing, aided by clearer and more potent policy directions across the country. Couldn't have said it more clearly. Philip Lowe, the Governor of the Reserve Bank, had this to say. When we're on a different path, people are saying, are they really serious? It was damaging us. Richard Court, the former WA Liberal Premier: the past decade of national energy policy has been a slow-moving train wreck. A slow-moving train wreck. And when it comes to...
the Prime Minister Prime
You're
Minister will
asking about
pause.
energy.
The Prime Minister will pause, and I will hear from the Deputy Leader of the Opposition. A point of order.
Mr Speaker, on relevance, rattling off the wrong page of talking points is not answering
Resume
the
your
question.
seats.
One company.
Resume your seats. The Deputy Leader of the Opposition knows that was not a correct way of stating a point of order. It might have been a good grab, but it was not a point of order. And I warn her that that sort of behaviour will not be tolerated for much longer. The Prime Minister is referring to energy prices, and I give him the call.
Mr Speaker, I was asked. I was asked about
Members
power.
on my left. Members on my left.
I was asked about power, and we know from the member for Mitchell, who's had some good comments about his mate, the member for Cook, that they were addicted to power, but they weren't very good at energy. They weren't very good at energy policy. That's the problem for those opposite. All about power policy, nothing about energy policy.
Order.
The truth
Members
is
on my left will
that the
cease interjecting,
cheapest
and my
form
right.
of new energy is clean energy, is renewable energy, which is why our policy
Member
will
Barker.
put downward pressure on energy prices. And when it comes to mortgages, I know this is a really difficult concept, but if you have the policy that we have, that the WA government has, and I noticed Minister Cook in the gallery there today. Perhaps Minister Cook could provide a workshop while he's here in Parliament House about how successful the WA program has been of providing a shared equity system for people to get into housing in Western Australia. And our Help to Buy scheme will do just that as well, because the nature of a Help to Buy scheme is that rather than the person who has the borrowings, it's a shared scheme.
Concluded. Before I call the member for Paterson, I will formally welcome the Honourable Roger Cook, the Deputy Premier of Western Australia, and Councillor Lorna Clark to the chamber. A very warm welcome to you both. And I give the call to the member for Paterson.
Thanks, Mr Speaker. My question is to the Minister for Employment and Workplace Relations. Minister, how will the Secure Jobs Better Pay Bill help address the cost of living pressures for working Australians by getting wages moving again?
Give the call to the Minister for Employment and Workplace Relations and Minister for the Arts.
Thanks very much, Speaker. And I thank the member for Paterson and thank her for her commitment to working people in her electorate. It's interesting those opposite, when they want to talk about cost of living, will never talk about how money gets into your bank account in the first place. We'll never talk about what happens in terms of wages in this country, because the Secure Jobs Better Pay Bill will get wages moving again, and that's why those opposite opposed it. If you put gender equality as an objective of the award system in Australia, that helps get wages moving in this country. If you improve how the Fair Work Commission considers equal remuneration and work value cases, that helps get wages moving in this country. If you ban pay secrecy clauses, that helps get wages moving in this country. If you give the Fair Work Commission the expertise to be able to better determine pay equity cases, that helps get wages moving in this country. If you get rid of zombie agreements, where people are still on the same agreements that they were on when John Howard was Prime Minister of this country, then that helps get wages moving in this country. If you simplify the Better Off Overall test to make sure that it's fair, to make sure that no worker can be worse off, that helps get wages moving in this country. If you open up bargaining which delivers flexibility and productivity for business, while at the same time delivering pay increases for workers, that's going to help get wages moving in this country. If you ban job ads, make it unlawful to advertise a job ad for less than the legal minimum, then that helps get wages moving in this country. But we know from the Shadow Treasurer that in fact is their problem with this bill. It is their problem because the Shadow Treasurer knows, As he answered when asked by Laura Jays about multi-employer bargaining, he said, well, it pushes up wages.
The Leader of the House will resume his seat. The member for Hume on a point of order.
I just draw your attention to Standing Order 68. The comment that the minister just made is false.
The minister is reading a quote from a media report. I'll just ask the minister to clarify where he is reading that document from.
It was said on television, Mr. Speaker. It was on Sky News.
I'll just ask the minister to continue with his answer.
Quote.
I'd ask the minister to continue.
Thank you. Look, in fairness to the Shadow Treasurer, I'll use a different quotation that was also used on television, and it wasn't the Shadow Treasurer, so this one won't upset him, because in a doorstop delivered in the Northern Territory, a similar question was asked of the Leader of the Opposition, where the Leader of the Opposition was asked whether he had concerns about proposed changes to the industrial relations laws. And he began by saying he was deeply concerned for businesses. And then he goes on to mention why. It's going to result in higher wages. It's going to result in higher wages. Those opposite, they do oppose everything in this bill, and they oppose it for the exact reason that we support it. It will get wages moving again.
The call to the honourable member for Warringah.
Prime Minister, right now it's perfectly legal for political parties and politicians to lie in advertising for elections and referendums. I tabled my Stop the Lies bill yesterday to stop this. Will the government support regulating against misleading and deceptive advertising in election and referenda advertising to ensure a fact-based, respectful debate on The Voice?
Give the call to the Prime Minister.
I thank very much the member for Warringah for her question, and I also thank her for raising it with me in a meeting that we held
member for O'Connor.
that was very important. The member, of course, is very sincere in her strong view, which I share, that our electoral system and our democracy relies upon people being truthful and people being able to make decisions based upon the
members on my left,
the facts being there and not distorted. And in particular, the member has raised concern about the referendum on the constitutional recognition of First Nations people in our nation's birth certificate, our constitution. And that is important because there's been a lot of misinformation already out there, including that somehow it would usurp the role of this parliament, even though it is very clear from the discussions and the drafts that have been put forward.
Order. Members on my left will cease objecting. The member for Groom
will not be the case. Now, to do a change to our electoral system, though, is a complex and difficult task. We have the usual Joint Standing Committee on Electoral Reform inquiry at the moment into the 2022 election. One of the issues that they will examine is the potential for truth in political advertising laws to enhance the integrity and transparency of the electoral system. And I think that is certainly something that is worthy of examination. We await that report. I had a discussion with the Minister, the Special Minister of State responsible for the AEC after our discussion earlier today. He indicated to me that the AEC had expressed some concern to him about the capacity that they have to make judgments and what mechanism you would have to put in place in order to achieve the outcome that the member for Warringah seeks, which, as I say, is a very worthy one. I do note the member for Warringah and other crossbench members raised with me the South Australian laws in the state, and that's certainly something worth examining. That's something that I have only had drawn to my attention this morning. It certainly is worth examining. Our democracy is precious, and it is important that in the referendum in particular, but all elections, and all deliberations in which the Australian people have a say, that there be truth in what is put forward, and we'll examine the members' propositions. But we thank her for her constructive engagement with the government.
Time has concluded. Give the call to the member for Bennelong.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. My question is to the Minister for Social Services. How does the Albanese Labor government's investment in paid parental leave help families balance work and care and provide cost of living assistance?
Give a call to the Minister for Social Services.
Thank you, Speaker. And I'd like to thank the member for Bennelong for his question. And I congratulate the member for Bennelong for being a strong voice for families and communities across his electorate. The Albanese government knows that improving paid parental leave is an incredibly important reform. It's important for families, it's important for women, and will deliver crucial benefits for our economy. It's why paid parental leave reform was a front and centre of our first budget. Families are front and centre of this budget and of this government's agenda, and we do want to help ease the burden of juggling care and work, and we're moving ahead on our commitment to reform paid parental leave. This week I'll be introducing legislation into the Parliament that implements our first tranche of paid parental leave changes that we announced in the budget. Crucially, when passed from the 1st of July 2023, it will give more families access to government payments, provide parents more flexibility on how they take leave, and encourage them to share care to support gender equality. Then, from July 2024, we will progressively increase the scheme to 6 weeks, which will finish in 2026, which will give families a full 6 months. This is the largest expansion since Labor established the scheme in 2011. Since our budget announcement, I've had the privilege of talking to many families about what these changes mean. Kiri is a working mum with 2 young kids who said that the promotion of shared care in the government's paid parental leave measures would have been an enormous benefit when she and her partner were having children. She said, "I wish that this was in when I had my 2 kids. I'm the main breadwinner in our family, and my husband didn't have any paid parental leave through his job. So when we had our children, he only took a few days off." Daniel and Amy in Mackay call the government's announcement fantastic, saying additional time to help couples and single parents is very welcome. They agree that the key feature to help families is the flexibility and the ability to share entitlements, as opposed to when they first welcomed their children. The government has been very clear that our paid parental leave scheme is designed to complement employer-paid workplace leave schemes and will not replace them. We will never accuse parents of being double dippers if they take both entitlements. I am proud to be part of a government who has spent every day of their first 6 months in government delivering for families, delivering significant reforms and meaningful policies to improve the lives of families and communities right around Australia.
Before I order the member for Page, before I call the member for Hume, I'd like to advise the House that in the gallery today is Ms Rebecca White, the Leader of the Opposition in Tasmania, and Ms Anita Dow, the Deputy Leader of the Opposition. A very warm welcome to you both. And I'll give the call to the member for Hume.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. My question is to the Minister for the NDIS. I referred to his comments in the media last week that the RBA Governor was talking rubbish. Will the Minister apologise for these comments?
I'll give the call to the Minister for the National Disability Insurance Scheme and the Minister for Government Services.
The member for Hume knows he's misquoting me, but he's got form on misquoting people. I was asked about wages policy, and it was put to me that the Reserve Bank Governor had said that if wages increase too much, that's bad for the economy. The point that I made is the problem in Australia isn't that wages are increasing too fast, is that they haven't increased enough over the last 10 years. They've been frozen. And furthermore, the laws which Labor's just passed, with the support of the Senate, will for the first time in 10 years give feminised industries, low-paid workers a chance of getting wage rises. What amazes me is that when people are doing it hard in this country, as so many industries have for so long, the opposition is not only not repentant for their poor wages policy in the last 10 years, they haven't learnt the lesson of the last election.
Has the minister concluded his answer? Has the minister concluded his answer? Has the minister concluded his answer? I give the call to the member for Gilmore. Order.
My question is to the Minister for Health. How is the Albanese Labor government making life-changing drugs accessible and affordable for Australians with high cholesterol and chronic heart failure?
Give the call to the Minister for Health and Aged Care.
Mr Speaker, and I thank the member for Gilmore for her question, because I know just how hard she campaigned on our promise to cut the price of medicines. And already, Mr Speaker, we are delivering on the promise that the member for Gilmore made to her community. In July, we slashed the maximum amount that millions of pensioners and concession card holders would pay for all of their medicine needs by 25%. So now, across a year, pensioners will pay no more than $4.70 per week for all of their medicines needs. In September, we cut the price of more than 2,000 brands of medicines, putting $130 million back in the pockets of hard-working Australians. And, Mr Speaker, on the 1st of January, we will deliver the largest cut to the price of medicines in the 75-year history of the Pharmaceutical Benefits Scheme, putting $200 million back into the pockets every year of hard-working Australians. And, Mr Speaker, we're also adding more and more medicines onto the PBS. Since the 1st of July, already we've made 54 new or amended listings to the PBS, giving patients, hundreds of thousands of patients, access to life-saving, life-changing medicines that would otherwise be way outside the reach of ordinary Australian families. And this week, Mr Speaker, we've added 3 more new and extended listings. On Thursday, we're extending the listing for Repatha, a medicine for stubbornly high cholesterol, to allow it to be prescribed for the first time by GPs. 10,000 patients every year will now get access to this life-changing medicine more quickly and without having to travel to the city to see a specialist to do it. And instead of paying almost $4,000 for this life-changing treatment, they'll pay just $42.50, or from the 1st of January, just $30. On Sunday, I met Terry at the New Calvary Hospital in Adelaide. Terry is just 41 and incredibly fit, but needed an urgent double bypass last year. He's recovered really well, but he now needs to go on this drug, Repatha. And now he'll be able to do that, allow him to run in the Sydney Marathon, which he's planning to do next year, and he'll pay just $30 for the script. Vercuvo will also be listed for the first time to treat symptomatic chronic heart failure, a condition that hospitalises about 180 Australians every single day. Andrew was also with us on Sunday. He's had this condition for years and recently got much worse, to the point where he couldn't even lie down to sleep. Well, he's now on Vercuvo and will pay $6.80 instead of $1,900 for this treatment. He told me, "We're hopeful it will boost my heart function and add years to my life." And, Mr Speaker, that's what this is all about. Cheaper medicines aren't just great for a hip pocket at a time of burgeoning cost of living pressures, it also changes people's lives.
The call to the member for Lyne.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. My question is to the Minister for Climate Change and Energy. How many private properties will be impacted with the construction of poles and wires across New South Wales as part of Labor's energy policy to build 28,000 kilometres of new transmission lines?
Give a call to the Minister for Climate Change and Energy.
Well, thanks, Mr Speaker. I think by poles and wires across New South Wales, the honourable member must be referring to HumeLink. HumeLink is the link necessary to connect Snowy 2.0, Mr Speaker, which the previous government forgot to plug into the grid, Mr Speaker. They forgot to connect to the grid. When you have a project, a good project, admittedly it's running 18 months late, but it could be running on time or later, it wouldn't really matter if it's not connected to the grid, which is what the previous government failed to do. But credit's where I always try to be fair about such matters. Credit where it's due. The former Minister for Energy did bring down a regulation to facilitate transmission, including specifically HumeLink. And in that regulation, he said transmission is critical to deliver low-cost, reliable and secure energy to consumers. And I'll take the interjection from the former minister who just said it's not 28,000 kilometres. Well, he did say on the 18th of March this year thousands of kilometres of new transmission is likely to be needed to connect new generation and deliver reliable, affordable energy. Reliable and affordable energy across the national market. Thousands of kilometres, he said, were necessary. He just forgot to deliver any.
The member for Lyne will resume his seat. When the House comes to order, I'll hear from the member for Macarthur.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. My question is to the Minister for Early Childhood Education. How will the Albanese Labor government's plan for more affordable early childhood education help families with the rising cost of living?
Call to the Minister for Early Childhood Education and the Minister for Youth.
Thank you, Speaker, and I thank the member for Macarthur for his question and for his interest and contributions to early childhood development before coming to this place and since being in this place. I have to say, Speaker, it's rather disappointing that in the last 6 months I haven't had a single question from those opposite about our early childhood education reforms and how they help families struggling with the rising cost of living. Reforms that provide cost of living relief for 9,200 families in the member for Macarthur's electorate. In fact, our landmark reforms provide more affordable early childhood education for more than 1.2 million families right across Australia in every electorate. That's 1.2 million families that have been struggling with the rising cost of living. 1.2 million families that have had to deal with a 41% rise in the cost of early childhood education and care over the last 8 years, all while working under the previous government's policies deliberately designed to keep their wages low. Families, Mr Speaker, who this evening will be sitting around the family table doing their household budget, factoring in the cost of early childhood education, factoring in all the other costs, and then making a decision about whether or not they can afford to work an extra day or an extra 2 days or an extra 3 days, or whether that gets eaten up in early childhood education and care costs, and what that means for their household budget. Now, the opposition might think that early childhood education is merely outsourcing parenting, Mr Speaker. But on this side of the House, we know that education plays such an important role in a child's brain development, as well as for our economy. The Albanese government takes the responsibility of delivering a fairer Australian society seriously, and that includes providing cost of living relief. That includes providing the kind of cost of living relief that's going to see those families that have early childhood education fees, that are sitting there wondering how they're going to afford Christmas presents, how they're going to pay the rent, that they can have confidence that those fees are going to go down and that they can work that extra day if they so wish. They can go back to study if they so wish. They can take on extra hours if they so wish, contribute to the household budget and bring down their cost of living. They don't just provide relief to the household budget. They also help families boost their household income and enable those primary carers to go back to work if they so wish. Our investment in more affordable early childhood education is exactly the kind of cost of living relief with economic dividends that we need right now.
Time has concluded. I'll give the call to the honourable member for Flinders.
My question is to the Prime Minister. Australian families are set to be $2,000 worse off this Christmas under this government, with higher power prices, higher mortgages and families paying more at the checkout. Prime Minister, under Labor's extreme industrial relations changes, inflation will rise, industrial disputes will increase and small business will be slugged with tens of thousands of dollars in new costs. Why is this government making a bad situation worse?
Good question. Call to the Prime Minister.
Well, I thank the member for her question, and I thank her also for using the Leader of the Opposition's favourite phrase. And what is it? It's going to make a bad situation worse. So he acknowledges that after 10 years in office, we inherited a bad situation. That's the starting point. And I've thought, as I've heard the Leader of the Opposition use that phrase, it's in the question here, how on earth, having sat in a cabinet for 3 terms, do you become Leader of the Opposition and say, gee, it's a bad situation Australia's in? A bad situation. Well, the member is right. We did inherit a bad situation because what we inherited was a government that didn't have an economic plan for the nation, didn't have an energy plan. They had 22 energy policies and didn't deliver any. We inherited a situation where inflation was rising, where interest rates started to increase under them, and where they didn't have a plan to deal with skills development, where during the pandemic they told everyone to leave the country and then wondered why they inherited skills shortages when the economy opened up again. All of these problems we have inherited.
The manager
skills
of
shortages,
opposition business will
we're dealing with it. We're dealing with 180,000 fee-free TAFE places next year. Low wage growth, we're dealing with it, with our Secure Jobs Better Pay bill that they oppose. And somehow they've also implied or stated clearly in the question, somehow that wages going up will be a bad thing for the economy. Well, what we had with the decade of low wage growth was that was a handbrake on our economy. Right. We want an economy that works for people, not the other way around. Yeah. We make no apologies for that. We want to deal with cost of living issues by having cheaper childcare, cheaper medicines, and by lifting wages as well. Because people's standard of living is based upon revenue and expenditure. If you increase their wages, they're better off. That's the whole idea. But those opposite are opposed to higher wages. Those opposite concede in the question that yes, indeed, we did inherit a bad situation from those opposite.
Call to the member for Blair.
Mr Speaker, my question is to the Deputy Prime Minister. When it came to defence, the former government made announcements based on pictures and press conferences rather than substance. What will the Albanese Labor government do to ensure the professionalism and integrity of the Australian Defence Force is always the focus?
The call to the Deputy Prime Minister and Minister for Defence.
Well, thank you, and I thank the member for his question and acknowledge the contribution that he has made to defence policy in this country.
Manager of Opposition
the Australian
Business.
Defence Force belongs to all of us. We seek diversity in the Australian Defence Force so that it looks like Australia, so that at the same time that we can say the ADF is of us, it is also all of us, which is why it's so important that the Defence Force is above partisan politics. Now, there are a number of members of this House who have served in the ADF, and they rightly celebrate their service in the ADF as part of the CV for why they're here. Completely fair enough. And there are also other members of the Defence of this House who've had the opportunity to see the Defence Force in action, and they've posted images of themselves with the ADF, also completely fair enough. But when it comes to doing press releases or press conferences, as the Minister for Defence, as the Prime Minister, it is so important that we do not cast a political overlay over an institution which should be sacred in this nation. And that is the standard that the Albanese government will set. But that is not what we saw over the last 10 years, because those opposite never avoided a press conference where they used the Australian Defence Force as a backdrop. And the low point of this was on the 4th of January in 2020, during the biggest mega-fire in our recorded history, just 4 days after a firestorm swept through the south coast of New South Wales, on a day on which the temperature hit 44 degrees in this town in the midst of lives being lost and property being damaged. And those opposite made a decision to call out the Defence Force to help with the bushfires, and then they produced a video which had images of the ADF, and the tagline was "How to donate to the Liberal Party." That was a disgrace. That was a moment which showed deep disrespect for our nation's uniform, but it made it clear that the Liberals love the politics of defence. They just have no interest in defence policy. Well, the Albanese government will be very, very different. No press conferences on this side using Top Gun music. No press conferences using the ADF as a prop. No press conferences with party political banners, and no press conferences with a tag inviting people to donate to a political party. When we do press conferences with the ADF, there will be a separation, so that the messages that we have as politicians stand apart from the service that our brave men and women in uniform give to this nation.
Order. The House will come to order. Before I call the member for Indi, I'd like to inform the House and the gallery we have a delegation from the Australian Political Exchange Council from New Zealand. On behalf of the House, I'd like to welcome you all, and also a delegation from the member for Wannon. The member for Wannon. I'm addressing the House and acknowledging guests to this House. Show them some respect. And I'd also like to acknowledge a delegation from the Armenian Australian Youth Advocates. Give the call to the honourable member for Indi.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. My question is to the Prime Minister. The Senate is considering an amendment to the National Anti-Corruption Commission Bill to require a simple majority of the NAC Oversight Committee to approve the appointment of the NAC Commissioner. Prime Minister, this is a good faith and sensible amendment that will protect the independence of the NAC in the decades to come, while preventing any opposition vetoing appointments. Why is this government afraid of us supporting this amendment, which would guarantee that the NAC is a truly independent body?
Give the call to the Prime Minister.
I thank the member for her question. I thank her for her work in ensuring that Australia will have a National Anti-Corruption Commission. The member, of course, introduced a private member's bill in the last term of parliament. We tried to get it debated because the government said it had a bill, but it never introduced it. What we've done is introduce a bill. We had an inquiry that the member for Indi chaired. We adopted the recommendations of that inquiry, all of them. We adopted the recommendations of the inquiry. What you do is you have legislation, you then have an inquiry. If you adopt all the recommendations in which the member for Indi was the chair, with respect, I think we've done exactly what you should expect a government to do. You were the deputy chair, of that committee. So we've done exactly what came through the process of that committee inquiry, which the deputy chair of the inquiry would be very conscious of. What we haven't done is support amendments that have flowed from various quarters in this chamber after we've had a bill, after we had extensive consultation beforehand, after we had a committee process, after we had recommendations and after we adopted all of them. I stand by our position. I sincerely hope the Senate adopts our position that has been put forward. We'll consider amendments on their merits. I've had discussions with the Attorney-General and with some crossbench senators about amendments that we will support.
Give the Prime Minister a pause. I'll just call the member for Indi.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Yes, on relevance, Mr Speaker, I'm asking the Prime Minister to go to the actual point of the amendment in the Senate around oversight and the simple majority question. I'm just seeking an explanation.
The Prime Minister is in order, and I'll give him the call. He's being relevant.
A simple explanation, as the Deputy Chair of the committee would recognise, is that this is something that isn't a recommendation of the committee that was put forward, unanimous recommendations to this House and to the Senate. So I think, with respect to the member for Indi, given you were supported for the high office of being the deputy chair of that committee in recognition of your genuine support.
Well, members on my left.
It did not come through as a recommendation.
Order. Members on my left. The House will come to order.
It did not come through as a recommendation from the process.
Order.
We have
on my left will
supported
cease
proper
interjecting.
processes in order to get a National Anti-Corruption Commission, which the Parliament should be proud of. I look forward to it being adopted.
Give the call. Order. Members on my left. I'd like to hear the member for Robertson.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. My question is to the Minister for Indigenous Australians. How will an Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander voice improve the lives of Indigenous Australians?
Give the call to the Minister for Indigenous Australians.
Thank you, Mr Speaker, and I thank the member for Robertson for his question. He, like every person on this side of the House, understands the issue of equity. Life outcomes for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people can and should be better. The gaps in life expectancy and educational outcomes persist is unacceptable. Decades of failed government policies have not worked. A voice for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Australians is the best chance we have. And perhaps ever will have, to address the injustices of the past and create change that will deliver a better future. A better future that will improve the lives of Indigenous Australians on the ground in practical ways, like health, education and housing. This isn't about more bureaucracy. This is about making sure voices in remote and regional communities are heard. The Uluru Statement from the Heart is the result of 12 regional dialogues. After all, over 1,200 attendees from right across this country. This isn't about dividing people. It's about uniting Australians, giving First Nations people a say in the matters that affect us, not being told what's best by bureaucrats. Mr Speaker, I grew up in Whitton, down in the Riverina, a small country town. I was raised by Billy and Nina. They were my great aunt and uncle. We didn't have much, and I didn't know my dad until I was 27. Billy and Nina taught me the value of respect, and being kind to others doesn't cost you anything, and that you learn more from listening than by talking. That someone with my history can stand in this place is the most unlikely thing. But not everyone is so lucky. Not everyone can have their voice heard, and that's why we need a voice. An Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander voice is an idea whose time has come. The Australian people will decide this referendum, not politicians. And I have faith in the Australian people. We want to take Australia forward for everyone. We will work with anyone who wants to take this journey forward to a better future.
Order. With the call to the member for Fairfax.
Mr Speaker, my question is to the Assistant Treasurer. In his speech introducing the Treasury Laws Amendment Bill last week, the Assistant Treasurer restated the government's commitment to lower the cost of electricity bills for consumers. Does this mean the government is standing by its commitment to reduce household electricity bills by $275, or is this yet another cruel promise the government plans to break?
The call to the Assistant Treasurer.
Thanks very much, Mr Speaker, and I thank the honourable member for his question. The Albanese Labor government stands by each and every one of its promises, and we have been working to deliver on those promises for the last 6 months. While this mob over here have done everything in their power to stand in our way on delivering on our promises, we have been busy doing the work to ensure that we deliver on our promises. Whether it has been introducing laws to get wages moving again, whether it has been introducing laws to ensure that Australians can afford to make a choice about whether they stay at home and look after their kids or go back and work another couple of days to make ends meet, whether it is about ensuring that we can put our elderly Australians in an aged care facility and know that they're going to get well fed and well cared for. We have been delivering on each and every one of our promises, and in the area of energy. As the fools on this side of the House come to the dispatch box each and every question time, asking their ridiculous questions when they know that they have presided.
Assistant Treasurer will take a breather, and I'll hear from the order. I'd like to hear from the Manager of Opposition Business on a point of order.
Assistant Treasurer has form in repeatedly using unparliamentary language. He's just done it again. He should be asked to withdraw.
That AFR piece was.
I'm going to ask the Assistant Treasurer to withdraw to move on with his answer.
Mr Speaker, while this mob over here on each and every day of question time have come to that dispatch box and asked us questions about what we're doing to help ordinary Australians meet their cost of living issues.
Order. Members on my left.
For 9 years they have presided. For 9 years they have presided over a wreckage of energy policies, 22 energy policies. Not one of them delivered. Not one of them delivered. While we're doing the hard work to ensure that we can get
the Assistant Treasurer, and I'm going to be very clear with the member for Wannon. You don't have the call. You don't have the call. You don't have the call. Okay. Well, I didn't hear what you said. So if you're going to come to the dispatch box and yell, you'll be warned. Well, you didn't have the call. So you wait until you get the call and I'll hear you. I'll give the call to the Assistant Treasurer with 1 minute to go.
Okay. Now, if members opposite want to know why there are pressures on our power system and on energy prices in this country, they should go and grab a mirror. 22 failed energy policies, not one of them delivered. 22 failed energy policies, not one of them delivered. Well, we're getting onto the job of ensuring that we have an energy policy which will deliver affordable and sustainable energy in this country, and they are doing their level best day in and day out to frustrate the delivery of those policies. If Australians want to know why their energy bills are going up, they should look no further than that fellow over there. Look no further than that fellow over there, because there is not a man or woman in this parliament who is more responsible for the increase in energy prices than the member for Hume over there.
The time has concluded. The Minister's time has concluded. The Minister's time has concluded. Give order. When the House comes to order, the member for Fairfax will cease interjecting. I give the call to the member for Parramatta.
Mr Speaker, my question is to the Minister for Aged Care. What changes has the Albanese Labor government made in its first 6 months to improve aged care for our older Australians?
Give the call to the Minister for Aged Care and Sport.
Thank you, and I thank the member for his question because I know how hard he campaigned to see aged care reform in this country. And as he knows well, we inherited an aged care system in complete crisis, one that was so bad that it needed a Royal Commission. And this crisis is best articulated by a line from that Royal Commission final report that describes the attitudes of those now opposite. And that report read, Mr Speaker, "At times in this inquiry, it has felt like the government's main consideration was the minimum commitment it could get away with, rather than what should be done to sustain the aged care system so it is enabled to deliver high-quality and safe care." The former government completed a mere 6% of those Royal Commission recommendations in the time they had in office. Really?
What now?
Order. The Minister for Early Childhood does not need to assist the chair. Order. Members on my right. Members on my right will cease interjecting so I can hear from the Manager of Opposition Business.
Mr Speaker, on relevance in a previous question time, you have asked
Order.
that a minister
Members on my
return
right.
to the question because they had, quotes, had a preamble. The minister has had a preamble. She should be asked, I submit, to return to the question.
The Manager of Opposition Business has raised this point before. The minister is 1 minute in. She's talking about the changes that the government has made in the first 6 months to improve those in aged care, and I'll ask her to continue and draw her back to the question so she can update the House.
I would love to, Mr Speaker. The Royal Commission actually made 148 recommendations to improve aged care, and the then government, achieved only 9 of them in 15 months. Only 9 recommendations to improve aged care in 15 months out of 148. And this lack of work, this lack of delivery, this lack of output was there despite the fact that they had 3 ministers in charge of aged care at the time. They had Senator Richard Colbeck, the actual Minister for Aged Care, they had the Honourable Greg Hunt, Minister for Health and Aged Care, and they had the then Prime Minister, Scott Morrison, as the Minister for Health, undermining or presiding over the health portfolio, depending on whether or not you're a Nikki Savage source.
The minister will resume her seat. Order. And I'll give the call, reluctantly, to the member for Petrie on a point of order.
A couple of points of order, Mr Speaker.
One will do. Order. One will do.
No. Well, there's 2. There's one on correct title in relation to the member for Cook.
Resume your seat.
Well,
resume your seat. The minister, resume your seat. Resume your seat. The minister was clear. I was listening carefully to her answer, where she said the former Prime Minister, Scott Morrison. That is his title. And I'll give her the call to continue her answer in silence.
So many titles to choose from, Mr Speaker. I can see how it's confusing.
You may continue with your answer.
In just 6 months, the Albanese government has directly addressed 37 of 148 recommendations. 37 recommendations to improve aged care in 6 months compared to 9 in 15 months. We have passed 2 pieces of reform legislation. We have delivered a much-needed funding boost for residential aged care homes. We have increased funding by around $1 billion this financial year to fund workers to spend more time with their residents and to ensure a registered nurse on-site 24/7. In just 6 months, Mr Speaker, the Albanese government has strengthened provider and governance reporting requirements, bringing in greater transparency and accountability. In just 6 months, Mr Speaker, we've made it mandatory for providers to report how much money they are spending on food for each resident, with providers spending less than $10 a day referred to the Commission. And one of our first acts in government was to make a submission to the Fair Work Commission to get aged care workers a pay rise. And on 4th of November, just 2 weeks shy of our 6-month anniversary, the Fair Work Commission made a welcome interim decision for an increase to wages of 15% for aged care workers involved in direct care. Older Australians, our parents, grandparents, friends, relatives deserve an aged care system that delivers high-quality and safe care. And on this side of this House, we've been working very hard in 6 months to achieve it.
The minister's time has concluded. Give the call to the honourable member for Brisbane.
Thank you, Speaker. My question is to the Prime Minister.
55% of my electorate of Brisbane are renters. It is getting harder for people to find a home to rent. Individuals are forced to couch surf and entire families are living out of their cars. We've heard about real estate agents in Brisbane advising landlords to increase rents by over 20%, and the annual rental affordability report out today has revealed that 58% of private renters are in housing stress. Prime Minister, will you commit to putting national rental standards that included end-to-no-grounds evictions and a 2-year rent freeze on rent increases on the agenda at National Cabinet meeting next week?
I give the call to the Prime Minister.
I thank the member for his question, and yes, indeed, there are challenges of housing affordability in Australia. We accept that. And what we've done is to accept responsibility for making changes that the national government can do. There are national government, there are state governments are responsible for many of the issues that the member raises, and local government is also responsible as well in terms of whether they choose to support affordable housing. I've said before that in my area, fortunately, the Labor councillors support affordable housing. Unfortunately, members of the Greens Party and some others have failed to ever support any affordable housing measures because what they say is that increases in density are bad. And I'd encourage the member to come to the Mirvac project in my electorate, which is on the corner of Marrickville Road and Livingston Road. They can see there a great example of a project that brought together an increase in density, together with the support of the council, provided a 100% privately paid for public library that has won awards for architecture, not just in Australia, but is now winning some global awards as well. This is an example whereby we worked the local government together with the state New South Wales government, because it was the old Marrickville Hospital site, to get an increase in density close to public transport, which is also allowing for an increase in affordable housing. So I'd say to the member,
the Prime Minister will pause. The member for Brisbane on a point of order.
Point of order on relevant, Speaker. I understand how levels of government work. The question I asked was about renters, not housing affordability.
Resume your seat. It is not a correct way of taking a point of order. The Prime Minister is directly relevant by talking about affordability in housing, which was in the question. I'll give him the call.
Thanks very much. I was asked about housing affordability, and what I'm doing is pointing towards different methods whereby you can have more affordable housing by cooperation, including with local and state government, which goes directly to what the member asked, because he didn't ask me about any actual federal government responsibility. But I'll tell you what the federal government's doing. We have our housing accord. Bringing together the Master Builders Association of Australia, bringing together every state and territory government, including the Palaszczuk government in Queensland, with the Commonwealth in order to promote housing development, in order to put downward pressure, in order to provide more support for affordable housing. Affordable housing is a challenge. There aren't simple, easy solutions. If there were, government would have just adopted them. What we have is a series of measures, all of which are combined to ensure that we take action to make housing more affordable for Australians.
Call to the member for Moreton.
Thank you, Speaker. My question is to the Minister for Environment and Water. Queensland's Great Barrier Reef is one of Australia's most magnificent World Heritage Sites, sustaining 64,000 Australian jobs. How is the Albanese Labor government acting to protect the Great Barrier Reef from the threats that it's facing?
Call member for Longman. I'll give the call to the Minister for the Environment and Water.
Thank you very much, Mr Speaker, and I want to thank the member for Moreton for his question. He's a passionate Queenslander and a passionate environmentalist, and I know he cares deeply about the reef. And, Mr Speaker, nobody needs to tell the Australian Labor Party, the Albanese Labor government, that we need to protect the Great Barrier Reef. Nobody loves the reef more than Australians do, and no one is more prepared to act and to invest in protecting the reef than we are here on this side. And Mr Speaker, you might have noticed that recently there was a reactive monitoring mission report that was written while those opposite were in government but was released overnight that said that the reef is in trouble because of climate change. And Mr Speaker, the truth is that around the world coral reefs are in trouble because of climate change. But the Great Barrier Reef is one of the best managed reefs in the world, and it doesn't require an endanger listing by UNESCO to make us on this side take it seriously. In fact, it's very true to say that since coming to government, as UNESCO says, the attitude on the Great Barrier Reef is like night and day between those opposite and us on this side. UNESCO is keen to see real action on climate change, and that's what they've got from the Albanese Labor government. A commitment, a legislated commitment to reduce carbon pollution by 43% by 2030 and get to zero net emissions by 2050. $20 billion invested in rewiring the nation so we can up the share of renewable energy in our grid to 82% by 2030. Pledges on methane, action on ozone, better environmental laws, real investment to protect, restore and manage, better water quality, better relations with traditional owners who are working as Indigenous rangers to protect the reef. Action on bycatch. I actually announced another program just last week on reducing bycatch in the reef. We've got some of the best marine science in the world, and we'll continue to share that with the world as we increase our investments. Action on crown of thorns starfish, including having Indigenous rangers and tourism operators working to control crown of thorns starfish. It's almost half a century since Gough Whitlam's government made the Great Barrier Reef a national park, and Labor is committed to continuing to protect and restore this most beautiful World Heritage property for generations to come, for our kids and grandkids, so they can enjoy the reef just as we have.
And I give the call to the honourable member for Riverina.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. My question is to the Minister for Climate Change and Energy. Australian businesses are facing collapse due to skyrocketing gas prices. A Riverina business called Cosmag in the town of Young, not far from here, has seen its gas bill skyrocket from around $60,000 per month to more than $170,000 per month. After 6 months in office, why has this government refused to take appropriate steps to pump more gas into the market to reduce prices?
Give the call to the Minister for Climate Change and Energy.
Well, thanks, Mr Speaker. I thank the honourable member for his question. He's right about skyrocketing gas prices. That is true. In December 2021, gas was $11.56 a gigajoule. It is today $20.47, all thanks to Ukraine and the war, illegal war by Russia. Oh, they scoffed. They were blaming the Russian war on May 20th, but apparently on May 23rd it's got nothing to do with Russia, according to those opposite, and nothing to do with it. The honourable member asked us to pump more gas. I'm not sure where he would have us find the gas to pump into the system, Mr Speaker. The honourable member might like to talk about what gas he thinks is lying fallow there that we can just press a button and get going. Now, the honourable member talks about energy prices and policies to reduce energy prices, and we on this side of the House are actively working to ensure that the impacts of the Russian war do not flow through to industries and businesses in Australia. But I give credit where it's due. Those opposite have been active as well. They've been promoting alternative views as well. They've been last week holding a seminar about atomic energy, about nuclear energy, Mr Speaker. That was their big idea last week. That's their big idea about lower power prices. And the member for Fairfax, the Shadow Minister, was asked about the views of the CSIRO and AEMO that nuclear energy is the most expensive form of energy available. And he said, personally, I don't accept those views, Mr Speaker. Personally, I don't. Apparently the CSIRO is wrong. He's nodding. The honourable member's nodding. Down at the CSIRO, all those PhDs are handing back their degrees, Mr Speaker. The member for Fairfax says they're wrong. What would they know? What would they know? Now, Mr Speaker, the AEMO CSIRO report found that the cost of small modular reactors, which those opposite are so in love with, would cost $16,773 a kilowatt, Mr Speaker, in capital cost. The
member for
now
New
that would be $5 billion a reactor, Mr Speaker. $5 billion a reactor, and we know that they would need 80 across the grid, Mr Speaker. That would amount to $402 billion, or 17% of GDP, Mr Speaker. That's their plan for lower energy costs.
Order.
Now they say they want a conversation. It will be a gas bag-led recovery, Mr Speaker.
Has the minister concluded his answer? The minister has concluded his answer. The member for Riverina will resume his seat. When the House comes to order, I'll hear from the member for Solomon. The member for Solomon has the call.
Yeah, thanks, Mr Speaker. My question is to the Minister for Veterans Affairs and Defence Personnel. How did the recent Prime Minister's National Veterans Employment Awards highlight the Albanese Labor government's priorities in veterans employment?
Give a call to the Minister for Veterans Affairs and Minister for Defence Personnel.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. And I'd like to thank the member for Solomon for his question and, of course, his continued advocacy for the veterans in his community and, of course, for his service to our nation as part of our Australian Defence Force. Last Thursday night, the member for Solomon joined me, along with the Assistant Minister for Defence and Veterans Affairs and, importantly, with the Prime Minister as well, to celebrate the Prime Minister's National Veterans Employment Awards here in Canberra. These awards are particularly special because they not only recognise the awesome work that veteran employees and businesses are doing around the country, but they also recognised for the first time the contributions that veterans' families, specifically veteran partners, can make to the civilian workforce. And I'd like to give congratulations to the Veteran Employee of the Year, Nick Elston of GSA Management, Veteran Entrepreneur of the Year, Garth Chester of Valenhold, Partner Employee of the Year, Katie Vidal of She Maps, Partner Entrepreneur of the Year, Kelly Wilmot of Green Fox Training Studios, Large Employer of the Year, Cubic Defence Australia, Small Employer of the Year, Videm Consulting Group, Excellence in Supporting Veteran Employment category winner, Vertical Scope Group, Outstanding Contribution to Veteran and Partner Employment winner, Amanda McHugh of Career Swag, and finally, winner of the Medium Employer of the Year and Outstanding Employer of the Year, Blue Ridge. The awards highlight the importance that this government places upon giving veterans the support they need in order to successfully transition out of military and into civilian life. And it highlights to all employers the benefits of employing a veteran. Veterans bring to the civilian workspace so many of the skills that they've learnt in their time in the ADF: leadership, teamwork, loyalty, agility, discipline and the ability to work under pressure. Veterans' families bring not only their professionalism, planning and management skills to the workforce, they also bring the ability to work autonomously and in highly variable environments. All critical skills in the modern economy, all in demand by employers today. The Albanese government knows just how important a good transition is for a veteran to ensure good outcomes following their military service, which is a big part of that is getting into meaningful work. That's why at the election we committed to a $24 million Veterans Employment Program looking to improve veteran and defence family employment prospects, improving education and backing veteran-owned businesses. I want to acknowledge some of our excellent veteran-led Aussie defence industry businesses that join us in the gallery today. The Whiskey Project, J37, 3ME Technology, Nova, Omni Executive and Xtech. Veterans make an amazing contribution to defence industry. They know what defence personnel need in the field. Your skills mean you continue to contribute to our sovereign capability. It's all part of how the Albanese government is delivering a better future for veterans and families.
On indulgence, I'll call the member for New England.
Speaker, on indulgence, I'd like to associate the coalition with the majority of your remarks. And also note in a serious form the passing of Ernie Chester Walker, the last of the Rats of Tobruk, at 106 years old today, who served not only in Tobruk but also was served on the Kokoda Trail. May he rest in peace.
Call the Prime Minister.
Thanks, Mr Speaker. Firstly, can I join with the Minister for Veterans Affairs in congratulating all those who were successful at the Prime Minister's Veterans Employment Awards last Thursday evening. It was a great honour to attend the awards, and it was good that the Chief of the Defence Force was there as well as members from both sides of the House, and it was a terrific evening, and I congratulate all of them. And on that note, I ask that further questions be placed on the notice paper.